Right. Okay. Well, I'm here with Daniel. I did not look up your last name, so Daniel Gentry. and uh, yeah, Daniel, I just would love for you to just introduce, tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and not, because typically when someone is asked to introduce themselves, it's like we tend to talk about career and all of that stuff, and of course that could be part of it, but I just would love to hear a bigger picture, like who are you, who do you know yourself to be, what matters to you, those kind of things.
Excellent. I love that. Absolutely. So I'm Dan Gentry. Career-wise, I am the president of Third Power Performance. So I do motivational speaking, coaching, success coaching, helping people take command of their lives and not just drift through life. But the reality is, beyond the facade of professionalism. I'm a husband, I'm a father. I have five children, ages from 34 through 15. My 18 and 15-year-old sons are still at home. Um, I am a farm boy from Dunellen, Florida. I grew up on a farm. Uh, you know, Joined the Air Force to get out and see the world. They sent me to Omaha, Nebraska, and that was it. Um, I am a husband. It took me a couple of times to get it right. So, I've been divorced twice, married my third wife. We coming up in June will be our 20th anniversary. So, like I said, it took me a couple of times to get it right, but I found the right one. Um, Told her she's stuck with me. I'm not going anywhere. But the reality is you know, my whole life is really about, I've made so many mistakes in my life with the corporate world and all of that. I like to say that my personal mission is to make sure that the song Cats in the Cradle is just a song and not a story about anybody's life. And if you don't know it, look it up. It'll make you cry. Um, and really it's about living your best life. And I know that people will say that as kind of cliche and all of that, but really, I'm 56 right now, and I've done a lot of stuff wrong and a lot of stuff right, and just really want to be the best human being I can be. And I tell people all the time at my day job that, my job is their leader is to, one, make work not suck, and two, make sure that you're the best human being possible for having been in my world. So that's kind of, I think that pretty much sums me up. I can go into all of the like the technology geeky stuff that I do and all of that, but really what it really boils down to is, one, I want to have the best human experience possible, and I want to impact as many people's lives positively as I can.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I think it's such a wonderful vision to live with. I think, when we have a very kind of clear and positive um direction in life, I think it
Mhm.
just makes everything more better. Everything better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really does. It really does. When you've got, here's where I want to go with my life, and here's, I had if you're okay with a little story. Um, when I was in middle school, 12, 13 years old, and I had a guidance counselor that I had a meeting in his office. Don't remember what for, couldn't tell you. But I remember we talked for a minute and he said, he kind of stopped and looked at me for a second. He goes, "Man, what do you think the world owes you?" And I'm like, I'm 12, 13. I'm like, I don't know. Right. And he goes, "The world doesn't owe you anything. You were given the gift of life. The reality is you owe the world. So the question you need to ask yourself is, how are you going to leave the world a better place because you were here? The world doesn't owe you anything. You owe the world." And I still to this day wish I could remember that guidance counselor's name because that kind of became a frame that I process things through is am I leaving the world a better place? And so I try to do that not only with the work I do and the coaching I do and all of that, but with my children and with my wife and all of that to how do I leave the world better because I'm here?
I
So
love it. I love it. So today you're going to help us. You're gonna leave the world better by helping women, including me, see more into the hearts of men, because that's really what this series is called. It's called A Window into the Heart of Men. So
excellent.
today I'm really, really looking forward to seeing into your heart as much as you're willing to show. Um,
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with our first question, and it's like the biggest question. I'll start you off with the big stuff. So since this conversation is about what men love about women, and so for you specifically, what and you could talk about your wife, or you can talk about women in general, or your sis,
Mhm.
anyone. What stands out for you the most? Like, what do you love most about women?
Oh God, that is such a, it's like, what do you like about breathing? I would say that, I mean, so many different paths to take. I love the fact that, women embody um intuition and growth and love and I hate to say softness because that in so much in our world today, softness is equal to weakness, and it is not. And so for me, my experience with women is that it's that the ability to comfort and the ability to, you know, when I need to be strong and I need to be, the provider, that those are very more rigid things. And the reality is that rigidity breaks. And you see this with whenever there's like an economic crash or I think the image that comes to mind is in the was it 20 late 1929, the stock market crash. People were jumping from building, men were jumping from buildings because their identity was tied up in I am a stockbroker or I am, it's like I am my job,
Mhm.
and that rigidity is fragile. And for me, women have always been so much stronger in that way, right? I may be able to be strong and open the pickle jar, but when the excuse my language, when the shit hits the fan, who knows, right? And yet women have always had that soft strength, the flexible strength that, has when you when when you treat it well, strengthens you. And so for me, the what I love about women is the that soft strength that where it's not a weakness. It's a this is this is how we hold everything together, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I,
Mhm.
I don't know if that made any sense at all, but it was my stream of consciousness on that. So
Yeah, it's part of it. So I love that. I'm so happy you're saying it because it's true. A lot of women, especially now, like in society, I find that women are very masculinized. Meaning like, a lot of women think that being more masculine is what makes them, I don't know, more successful. But what you just touched on, I think it's just such a valuable point for women to understand. It's that our strength comes from the softness and the femininity.
agreed. Well, and here's the challenge. in the Western world, the corporate world, however you want to look at it, in order to be strong, it has to be that rigid strength,
Mhm.
right? It's the masculine strength. And it's functional, right? It does work. That's the thing. It's like, because I've met plenty of career women in my life where they're just a female male, right? They're being what is the male stereotype, the corporate male, just in women form, right? And it works, and that's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but you're missing out on the nuance that women can bring to that world. And so I completely get it, because that's what, let's be honest, that's what gets promoted. That's what gets the accolades in the corporate Western world, is that rigidity and that masculine energy. But I think that, again, I'm not a woman, so I can sit here and say all day what I think, but I think that there's a missing out. I know that the corporate soul, we'll put it that way, misses out on the strength that women can bring. And I haven't figured out how to do it, but I would love for there to be a way for the corporate body to embrace both the masculine and the feminine strength in a business. But again, I don't rule the world, so
You're bringing an important piece of it. And as you're talking, actually, because I have a background in health, holistic health, and
Mhm.
I have a lot of experience working with women who burn out. Women burn out in the corp. It's like, a lot of women call it the dark night of the soul, but what it really is women are not meant to work or act the way. And I don't know if I want to go into this gender conversation because there's like so much hype around it, but let's say people with more masculine hormones and people with more feminine hormones, like, and I'm gonna call men and women whatever, but like women are not supposed to, like, we don't have as, like, I don't have as much testosterone as a man does,
Right.
and I push and I work really hard and I'm like, I try to be really rigid. It will burn me out. And it actually did, because I used to work in corporate and I burnt out. And that's how I discovered all of this. So yeah, what you're talking about is, it's such an important point.
And I mean, anytime that you are acting against your base function, it's hard. For what, talking male and female, testosterone, estrogen, all of that, okay, fine. If your core belief, if your core processing, and I've met men and women that fit this, if your core processing is more the feminine energy of nurturing, flexibility, intuition, right? And you try to act in a way that is different from that and go into the masculine energy of structure, alpha, take charge, it's a strain. Just like, I am, and every time I tell somebody this, they laugh. I'm an introvert. I'm an extreme introvert, right? I have to have my alone time. I have to be by myself to recharge, right? And yet I do public speaking. Go figure, right? But every time I have to go to a party and act the role of extrovert, I can absolutely do it. I can be the life of the party and crack jokes and all of that. And when I'm done, I am so done. I need to. Yeah. I remember the first time I ever got on stage and spoke to more than 1,000 people. right? I did my thing, and I presented and all of this. And then as soon as I walked off stage, I'm like, I'm going back to my hotel room and I'm going to crash. And I slept for 16 hours, right? Because it was so draining because it wasn't who I was. And so, as you know, for women who are doing that, alpha male corporate thing, yeah, of course they're going to burn out faster because they're pretending to be what they're not in their core, right? And again, this is generalizations. I've met plenty of women who have that masculine alpha energy and it's naturally who they are and they're fine, right? The challenge is that for most women that's not who they naturally are. They've just learned to do that because that's what they need to do to get ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Totally. I love it. Okay, so but something you said, I have another question about it. So you in the beginning you were talking about being a provider, and
Hmm.
I've been talking to like a lot of men, and men very often talk about how important it is. It's almost it's so I'm just curious, like what is your relationship to being a provider and
Okay. All right. How much time you got? No. There is so much societal historic pressure on men to be the provider. You know, me go hunt, me bring back meat, right? It goes all the way back, right? Of course, then again, you got lions where the lionesses go hunt. But anyway, I digress. Um, the reality is that in the Western world, in the classic Western world, let's put it that way, in the Western world of the 50s, it was the man who provided. And so many of us have been brought up with if you're not providing, you're not the man, right? And you see that a lot in like evangelical Christian circles and a lot of different places where in order to be your manliness, your literal manliness is tied to how well you can provide for your family, right? And it's ego, right? Where I mean, in my house, I'm the primary breadwinner. I mean, my salary is the primary breadwinner. My wife now has her career, and there was a point where, you know, because she was a stay-at-home mom up until our kids were like out into middle school, right? And there was a small part of that little ego, right? That was like, well, she doesn't need to go back to work. I make enough money for all of us, right? Right? It's ego driven where we're that provider. And it's uh, it used to be, again, I'm old. So it used to be very prominent in all of the cultural, the TV shows and the movies and all of that kind of stuff. But it's still very much expected where you're the man, you're paying. You're the man, you're providing. And, you know, for me, and this was the conversation that my wife and I had was, where do we want that to go? And what do, for me having the conversation with her is what do you want with your career and your life? You've raised some great children and that, people used to ask me, does your wife work? I'm like, oh yeah, the hours just suck and she doesn't get paid. All right. So, as a mom, right? But where do you want to go going forward, right? And so I'm not sure I answered your question, but I kind of went round and round. But really, a lot of the times for men, our egos, our self-worth is tied into how well we are providing for our families. And, having having been in the situation where I was not providing, right? Um, it's really hard. Let's, on men in general. Yeah, that's why I go back to the story in the 20s where, when the stock market crashed, men were killing themselves. For so many men, and this is something I wish desperately to help. For so many men, our ego, we are our professions, right?
Mm.
It's not I do public speaking. I am a public speaker. It's not I do healthcare technology. I am a healthcare technologist, right? And so if you're listening to that, I would ask your significant other, if they're male, or otherwise, actually, anyway, um, who are you? Who are you really? Right? Because for the longest time, I would say I am a technology professional. That was my identity, was how I provided. And the reality is I am a husband and a father. I do technology to provide. And that difference in semantics is both narrow and as wide as an ocean. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I have a new question that pop up. So, to like go and kind of like segue from this. So, okay, so one way to provide is financially, obviously, and
Okay.
that's what about other ways to like what like
Oh. Uh-huh.
it's like how does it not necessarily how does it make you feel, but like how does it impact you being able to provide to people you love? And it could be money, it could be, it doesn't, but it could be anything really. Your time, your opinion, your experience, knowledge, wisdom, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Again, it comes to ego. The first thing that comes to mind is if somebody wants to listen, they want to listen to my advice. They, my teenagers want to listen to what I have to say? Um, am I giving my wife what she needs as far as attention and, physicality? Um, it's an overgeneralization, but in general, men are driven by ego. And um, as sad as it is, not particularly proud of the fact, but I want for people to like me. I want for people to need me, and I want for people to take what I say and what I do as being important. And I think that for most men, if we're honest, that's the most important thing, is to know that we're valued and that we are, basically our ego's being fed. And, that's an oversimplification, but I also think it's probably the easiest to understand. Um, and I still remember, I think it was a marriage counselor a long time back, but they said that a lot of time for, you know, men that cheat,
Mm.
it's because their ego is being fed by someone else. And that makes them more susceptible. That there's a whole level of controversy that we can dive into around that. But I always feel like, um, what is the core thing that drives you, right? And again, we're talking broad, super broad generalizations, but in general, the way that I have experienced life is women are more in search of connection and men are more in search of ego. And you know, as much as I would like to say I'm enlightened and more elevated than that, the reality is I want somebody to tell me I'm doing a good job. I want my wife to say thank you for bringing her coffee. I want my children to say, Dad, you're the greatest. Because that's that core thing that I have for me, right? Not everybody's like that, but in the overarching generalizations, men want that feedback. They want, thank you for what you did. Thank you for providing. Thank you for being that voice of wisdom. Thank you for whatever, right? So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
It absolutely does. Sorry, I just had a call come in. It's interesting you say it, but I just want to reflect back to you're not unique in that at all. Because when I talk to men, and it's kind of funny because every man, well, not every man, but most men say say that maybe it's just me, but this is what I and but pretty much, I would say, like, I think all men I talk to have the same. It's like they say the same thing.
I'm not
Appreciation.
surprised.
You
I'm
know,
not surprised.
uh,
Like as I said, it is a generalization, and yet there are reasons we have generalizations, right? It's not going to be everyone. It's not going to be every man. It's not going to be every woman. But there are patterns. There just are. Um, so
yeah. Well, that's very interesting to know. Okay, so let's go to the next question. So, is there like can you share a moment or a few moments or different stories about how a woman's kindness and presence impacted you? And
hmm,
yeah.
okay. There are a number. I would say the first one that comes to mind, and I would be very curious after I finish this, what your thought is on how many men say this. The first one that comes to mind is my mother. Um, that I still remember, yes, when I was like in my teens, there were times where it was a little bit more challenging. I was a little bit more challenging, right? I was always a quiet, good kid, but I would like hide myself away and all of that. And I remember the acceptance that my mother had for who I was impacted me a lot. Um, yeah, it's hard to come up with like a specific instance, but I just know that no matter what happened, I always knew that she was there. I still, actually, funny story. The one that comes to mind is I was dealing with a challenge where I didn't want to tell somebody something bad. I had one of my friends. I needed to tell them something that it wasn't a great thing. And so I've always been really terrible at telling bad news, right? And the phrase that my mother used that I still use to this day was just do it. They can't eat you, right? Nothing bad is going to happen. They can't eat you, right? You're not going to die. And so that phrase is what, when I think of advice from my mother, the fact that deal with whatever, give the bad news that you have to talk to have that negative conversation. They can't eat you, so that's the worst that could happen, right? Um, but so there are so many different instances where women have impacted me in positive ways. We've had teachers in high school that you know n- n- gave me direction. There are relationships that I've had. As I've mentioned, been married three times. I'm on my third marriage. Um, there are pieces of wisdom that I carry with me from each of those. Um, Probably the funniest comes from my second wife, who I'm a bit of a Virgo, a bit of a perfectionist, and the one I will tell people frequently is she goes, "Dear, the position of perfection and omnipotence is taken, so you just have to get over yourself." Um, right? So there's bits of wisdom throughout life, but yeah, my we don't have enough time for me to talk about all of the wonderful things that my wife, my current wife, has helped me with and guided me through. We can have an entire other session just on that alone, but yeah, I have throughout my life been probably more acutely aware than most other uh, masculine figures in my life, been aware of how important women and the feminine energy are in our everyday life. So I've probably listened more than most. Um, Maybe it's just I've made more mistakes, and so so I've listened more because I did it stupid the first time. Who knows? But I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
You know what? I can see the love come through everything you're saying. It's just it's like so obvious that you have so much appreciation and love for women. I love
Well,
that.
good, because I do.
Okay, so I don't know if so this okay, so this question is a little bit kind of like it's not like direct enough maybe, but so how does being in love with a woman impacts you?
Oh God, it makes me do stupid shit. Um, God, being in love, and especially like new love, like the first time when you're like, remember, dating. I remember dating my wife, and just, I mean, it increases. Okay, we'll just say this: it increases your bravery by a factor of 100, and it decreases your intelligence by a similar factor. Um, um, it is like the best feeling in the world to have someone acknowledge you for who you are, to love you for that. And it just, like I said, it makes you the happiest, dumbest person in the world. The trick is to keep that happiest feeling while losing the dumb part, right? Um, and that's where dating is so important, is where you start to look at what are the positive, what's the real values and all of that, and how does that align with mine, while keeping your hormones in check. But since we're having a very very candid conversation, I would say that for men in general, the hormonal stuff that's going on reduces mind by a huge factor, and so we're not always super brilliant. Um, so yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a similar effect for women too, but um, the key is what I found, like I said, it took me twice to get it right. Um, is to look at how, what are the things that I actually value in life, and how does the people that I'm interacting with match that. So for long-term love, that it's getting beyond that early physical intoxication and getting into what really matters. And I would say that, from my perspective, that that early intoxication is nuts. It's crazy. Um, but you have to go deeper than that. You have to go deeper than that. And I had a therapist or a book, I don't remember, but a lot of times for men, especially in the beginning, it's more physical, hormonal pleasure, pleasure related. And for women, it's more about that connection and right. And so what I try to tell because I've got two sons, and I try to explain it's not just about the me want feel good, right? It's about how do you create that connection that's more than just the physical urges. So, yeah. So the short version is being in love with women makes you dumb until you figure out how to really evaluate what's important.
I'm sure the women are gonna.
Which is probably an important thing for women to know because, realize that, when you first start dating somebody, especially when you start having physical relations, he's going to be an idiot. Sorry. That's
That's funny. All right. So okay. So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off there, but
no, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's very good because you know what, I actually noticed it, and I was as you were talking, I was thinking about um dating because my experience, and long story short, I've been in a long-term relationship and I've separated, and so like I actually plan to start dating soon. And so as you were
I'm
talking,
sorry.
well,
Just kidding. Sorry, I didn't mean that.
uh, but you know, I was thinking as you were talking, I'm like, you know what? Because it's so true. Like
Yeah.
I found that when in the beginning, men often say yes to like everything. And I started being more not actually cautious, but kind of like more mindful in terms of like listening to where's the man at. Because it's like I don't want him to like promise me the world just because he's in his like intoxicated state, you
Uh-huh.
know? And then let's say like I don't know, 6 months or a year into the relationship, discover, oh wait, you know, I didn't mean that or whatever. So I think what you're saying, like, it just reminds me that I need to pay close attention to that.
You absolutely paid. Funny story. So my parents split when I was two. My dad joined we joined the Air Force, went out to the world. So my mom was a single mom until I was 10, and she met my stepfather. They got married. A great guy. He did good by me. However, my mother grew up in Dunellen, Florida, which if you haven't heard of it, you're like about 99.9% of the world. Um, it's a little town in the middle of nowhere. She grew up on a farm. So it's very rural, very country, yeah. So they used to go to walk on walks in nature and all of that. My stepfather from Indiana and loves Tampa. He is a city boy through and through. And yet, while they were dating, would go on the walks through the farm and, it wasn't until they got married that she found out that he hated the country and wanted to live in the city, right? And so it ended up working out, and he actually grew to love the country. But growing, that was the thing. that he despised being outdoors. And my mother was an outdoors person, right? And so I always think about that, as men, we're going to do whatever you want us to do because, um, God, how can I put this? Robin Williams has a fantastic phrase. It's not extremely politically correct, so if you need to edit this out, that's fine. But he goes that, you know, men were born with two heads, but unfortunately only enough blood to work one at a time. Um, and so, yeah, we're stupid, and we do crazy things for love. And so, yes, I would absolutely, this is where you have the the more challenge, and here's the thing, I find it to be more challenging conversations for people with the more feminine energy is to have the difficult conversation of what do you really like? And do you really want to do that? Do you really like being outdoors or do you really like the city? Do you really want to have kids or do you really like being not having kids? Do you really like dogs or do you not like dogs? Do you like cats, right? It's having the conversation of who are you really
Yeah.
more than who are you to make me happy? Because I would say that, more than just like the hormonal, I want to feel good thing. It's I want to make you happy because you're making me happy. I want to make you happy. So I'm going to do whatever is necessary to make you happy, right? And, so for men, it's buying the flowers, it's going for walks in the outside when we hate the outside. I want you to be happy, right? And it's not always from a egotistical or manipulative place. It's like, I really want you to be happy. And I think this is true of actually any relationship, is we're doing whatever we can because we care about this person so much. We want to make them happy. So we're willing to sacrifice what we want so that they're happy. And that's good to a very short point. Because if I'm going to make myself unhappy to make you happy, we come back to the burnout conversation where, if you're a feminine energy trying to be masculine energy in the workplace, you're going to burn out. If you're a, and a city person, indoor person trying to do let's go hiking, external energy relationship, you're going to burn out. And a burnout in a relationship is a breakup.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Okay. So, but how, like, whatever, because it's happened to me so many times. It's like, it's almost like I can tell that they are not exactly into something, but they keep telling me that they are. And so,
Mm.
like, what would you like? How do I, not just me, but like other women too, is like, how do we get to the truth? Tell us the truth.
Yeah. Um, wow.
Like, because I don't want to, I don't want to, like whatever you just said, it's such an obvious scenario. It's like, if the guy's gonna do things to make me happy even though it makes
mhm.
him unhappy, then it's either he's gonna burn out like you said, or that there needs to be like endless appreciation, endless, like.
Yeah. Um, I think the primary thing is real communication. It's here, okay. The first part of what I would say is that whatever that intuition is, because what you said to me is like you can tell that they don't really want to do this, but they're saying they do. That's the intuition talking to you that I don't think they really want to do this. They're saying they do, but I got that feeling. That is an intuitive process, which anyone with feminine energy has a much stronger connection to the intuitive sense. Listen to that sense every time, and I mean every single time that I have had an intuitive thought, and I tend to be a little bit more intuitive than most, males. Um, every time I've been right. Whether it's the day's Wordle, like I bet it would be that one, but that's not a good choice. Or it's, this meeting feels like it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So the first thing I would tell you is listen to that inner voice because it is always right. And even when it's not, you're still okay choosing that path. Um, but is to have a real, one real conversation of, hey, we don't have to do this. Is there something that you would like to do instead? Um, or if it's something you really want to do, the appreciation is a good path. But it really comes down to, are you able to have a real conversation with this person
Mhm.
where and that probably is the more important question, is if you get the feeling that this is not, that they're doing it because you want it, not because they want to, and they're not able to have a conversation around that, that's probably a warning sign of some kind. Okay.
Mm.
Um, but the reality is that, and you can even frame it where, hey, this is great. I love this. Are you, is this something that you want to do, or you're doing, for me, and I'm okay with that. I just want to know, right? Having having the open lines of communication is more important than anything else. And I can tell you from my failed marriages and from my positive marriage, from my non-failed marriages, that the times where you're not willing to open up about your feelings and about what's really going on is a problem.
Yeah.
And if you're able to, if you're able to say, I mean, I love doing this. I'm glad to be doing it with you. It's probably not my thing, but let's go. That's cool. But being able to have that conversation is the key.
Okay. I'm gonna keep this in mind going forward because I really need to get to the bottom of it. What do they really want? Um,
Well,
okay, so two more.
here's the thing though. Do you really know what you want? And for me personally, I have an idea of what I want, but then I go try something and then it's like, hey, this is really cool. So
Hmm,
don't don't limit yourself and don't limit them just because it's what you expect it to be. Um,
mm,
be open, be flexible, be open to different experiences. And, I've, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to put that there.
yeah, no, that's very helpful. It's true. It's true. Yeah, because it's like, what if they like it? What if they never did it and they don't know
Mhm.
if they like it? Yeah, okay. That gives me more freedom in the dating process. Okay, so two more questions, and those questions I'm asking them specifically because it's very, I mean, women just find those questions very important, the answers. So
Okay.
number one, so as you probably can, as you probably know, a lot of women are very self-conscious about their weight, their body shape, their, I don't know, whatever, their hair, their wrinkles, their whatever. So like, what would you say to women about that? Like if, you know, if let's say one of your women friends talk to you about this.
Um, yeah. God, fortunately, men have absolutely zero social pressure on how our bodies should look. No, just kidding. Although, you know, I have said many times that God, what was the phrase so in the in Hollywood, right? In the societal things for men, there are you can be the boy, right? The good looking, and I don't even know who the latest young stud is, right? Whoever's the young, time man of the year. And then there's the man where I always the one that always comes to mind is Sean Connery, but he's like old now. But it was like for men, there are two different, there's the boy and there's the man, right? Those are two that are acceptable. You can look like this, right, and still be considered attractive, right? For women, it's generally there's the girl. Done, right? And so you'll see people that are trying to look like they're 12. Actually, interesting little side note. My daughter was going into modeling when she was like 12, 13, right? And I was talking to one of the agents there that was doing the modeling stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, we generally want 12 and 13-year-olds for like the makeup commercials and the photo shoots for modeling because their skin is so naturally young looking that that's what we want people to think that they should look like." Right? And they're like at 12, like 12 and 13-year-old faces is what they're putting out in there as the ideal. Ridiculous. So here's what I would tell you. Um, Perfection is not real. Nobody, nobody wants a Barbie. You can go on whatever, adult website and, it's the blonde with the huge lips and, big, the reality is that every woman is beautiful. And I I literally tell my wife every day that she is gorgeous. And she every time I say that, she goes, "You just love me." I'm like, "Yes, I love you and you're gorgeous." Right? Um, my wife is beautiful, right? Don't get me wrong. But the reality is that, she's had two kids. She's not, going to be on the cover of a magazine going, "This is the ideal, what the society's ideal beauty is." It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I I love her more than anything in this world, and not right. The reality is that what society says is the ideal beauty is bullshit. The reality is that as cliche as it sounds, as beauty comes from within, right? Um, I have in my time, I'm 56, so I've dated a fair amount in my time. Not in the last 20 years because I want to stay married. But right? But I have dated girls of all different shapes and sizes and all, and everyone is wonderful. Everybody is beautiful. And it comes from you being comfortable in your own skin and you being confident in who you are. Um, I there was somebody I talked to that they were a fashion consultant, and they said that most people, if they would buy the proper size clothing for themselves, would actually be far more attractive than if they tried to buy the smallest size that they thought they fit in, right? And it's because, well, if I buy a size 3, I must be more attractive than if I buy a size 5. But the reality is the size 5 actually looks better for your true who you are. And I love that concept. And I teach it to my son. My 15-year-old is essentially me, right? He's 6'1", 310 pounds, right? He's big boy, right? And it's like if you get the clothing that fits your body, you will look far better than if you're trying to get something that's, well, I'm really only an XL, not 2XL, right? And that concept also fits in with here. If you will get in your mind that the body that you have is the right one for you, then that makes all the difference in the world. And it makes you more attractive, right? You know, it just does. That's not to say that, obviously, I work out. I'm trying to get myself in better shape, right? I want to be more physically fit, but it's not so that, so that I look like Superman or Aquaman or what Jason Momoa, right? I tell my wife all the time, I'm going to look like Jason Momoa, right? No, right? It's not realistic. And the reality is most people listening to this are not going to be Angelina Jolie or Gal Gadot or whoever the latest hot person is, right? But you can be you. And that person is gorgeous. And it's not just because I love you, it's because you're really gorgeous.
I love that. Thank you for saying all of that. It's like this is honestly because oh my gosh, this is like women's, I think, biggest concern typically. It's like, the size, the hips, the size of the hips, the size of the belly.
Well, here's the secret. Same for men. Every man I know, if they were honest, I'm like, I got double chins. No woman's gonna want to date me. I've got double chins. I I don't drive a nice enough car. I don't have, I don't fill in the blank. Every human being that I have ever come across, every human being, no matter your gender, your whatever, we see our flaws. We see what's wrong with us. And the reality is that the person that loves you is going to see everything right with you. Because you have so many things that are wonderful. You have so many things that are amazing that are, I don't know. I don't know you personally, and I don't know who's listening to this personally, but I can guarantee you there are things that you bring to this world that no one else in the entire universe can do. And that there are people out there that would be amazed at that. Right? And that is our purpose in this life is to bring the things that we have, the good, the gifts that God has given us, and bring that into the world and bring that into someone else's life. And to bring that to our children's lives, to bring, to leave that legacy beyond us. That's why we're here. And it hurts my soul so much to see so many people that, you know, and in my own past, right, where we don't bring forward what we're really here to do because we're worried about either what other people think or because we don't think it's good enough, or we don't, right? You know, if there's anything that I can say to anyone listening to this, is that you are amazing, that you have gifts that the world needs to see. You have things that other people will be in awe that you share with them. And don't hide it. Don't let your song go unsung in this world. Anyway, sorry, I got deep there for a moment, but
Yeah, you know what I got from what you said just now? It's oh my gosh, what was it? It's that the person who loves you will see all the right things about you. And I think that's such an important point. It's like, if we are going to be married or in a relationship, or if we're already going to invest our energy into like a lifelong relationship, of course we should choose to be with someone who actually sees the right, like, if we are with someone who sees wrong things about us, I mean, not to say that there doesn't need to be like any growth or anything, but it's like, be with someone who sees all the right things in you, and I like
um
that.
and the other thing that I would say is that learn to be independent. Um I think the it was a marriage counselor that I was seeing, and they said that the reality is that you must first become independent, because so many times people come together and they're
Totally.
dependent on each other. And the reality is you need to become independent and love yourself for who you are. And only then can you become interdependent with someone else, where you're not tied together, where I can't live without you, right? That's dependence, and generally unhealthy, right? The reality is that we have to be interdependent. I can survive on my own, but I choose to be with you versus I need you, right? It's so if there's anything I can say, is be your own person. Be happy with who you are, and then find someone that complements you and helps you be more than you are. But don't, I spent way too much of my life needing somebody to complete me. That's a bad road. That's a bad
Yeah,
road.
yeah,
So.
yeah. I think a lot of people, yeah. A lot. Well, me too. I had lots of relationships.
Yeah, we've got lots of horror stories we can share another time.
Talk about it forever. Okay, so actually, I actually have two more questions, but we kind of, I know you probably need, like, how are you on
I'm
time?
okay for time.
Okay. So,
I know we've run over quite a bit, but I'm okay.
yeah,
I love this conversation, so we're good.
yeah, me too. I love it too. So, okay, two more questions. So, I'll tell you the last one first, so you can like think about it. So, the last one is if you could tell like women anything, like what would be like the most important thing you would want women to know? So that's the
Okay.
last one. Leave that. Now, this question might be a little bit surprising, but oh my God, so many women ask this. So, how can a woman tell a man about what she needs? Like, how can she ask a man for what she needs in a way that will be effective?
Okay. That's a very open-ended question. There are a lot of different variations on that. What I would say is being direct.
Mhm.
Um, again, we come down to the masculine, very rigid energy. The feminine is more fluid and flexible energy. Um, oftentimes I have to try to divine what my wife needs. I have to try to figure out, based on what they're saying, what do they really, do they really want to go to that restaurant, or are they just saying, whatever you choose, or right? There's again, overgeneralizations, but generally women will not tell you, I want to go here. I want to do this. I want to make love tonight. I want to go to this restaurant. I want to. That doesn't have there. In general, there is a more nuanced where it's like, this, whatever. Yeah, that would be all right. Maybe we could go there or somewhere else or right. Again, it's an overgeneralization, but generally women aren't direct with I want this, right? And so men are left trying to divine what a woman wants. The reality is, I would absolutely love to be told, I want Indian tonight. Can we go there? Right? Or, whatever. So I would say that being more direct and saying, hey, I would really like to, and again, depends on the need. A lot, sometimes it can be a little bit more, more, challenging where, it's like, hey, I'd really love for us to be intimate tonight. Can be a little bit more emotionally charged. But the reality is that it's either, taking charge yourself, which most men will never tell you they want, but almost all of them will appreciate. Okay. Or being direct and saying, hey, this is, I would really like for us to do X, right? And so that being straightforward is really helpful. Most of the time we have no clue what you want. And we're trying to figure it out. So giving us a clue would be a help. Right? Because we want you to be happy. Because if you're happy, we're happy, right? They say happy wife, happy life, right? I generally prefer a happy spouse, happy house because it's both people. But the reality is that there's nothing in the world that I want more than my wife to be happy and to be, excited about what we're doing. Just most of the time, I have no idea what she wants, right? So please tell us, please.
Alrighty. Okay, so for the women who are listening to this, there's a reason why I ask this. It's just to emphasize yet again that hinting does not
No,
work, because that's what we do. Hint. Do not
men
hint.
are
Be
stupid.
direct.
I mean, okay, not stupid, but we don't do hints. I mean, there are a few people that get it, right? And I've gotten better because third marriage, just saying. All right. But the reality is like, I can't remember. I think it was a Jeff Foxworthy thing, and he was talking about how, his wife said that, I wanted to make love to you last night, but you fell asleep. And he's like, I would have loved it. It's like, well, I touched your shoulder. He's like, touch lower, right? So it's like, I don't do hints, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Yeah. In general, most men are clueless and we're dying for a hint. Please tell us what you want. Please.
All right, thank you. Okay, so then the last question, as I was saying, so if there's one thing, like what do you think is the most important thing you can leave women with?
The absolute most important thing, and I alluded to it earlier, love yourself. Be yourself. Be happy with who you are. Be independent so that we can become independent, interdependent together. There is nothing more attractive than a woman who has her shit together and doesn't need us, but chooses to be with us.
Mm.
If you need me, whatever. I got power. Yeah. You want some money? All right, fine. I'll treat you however I want because I got the power. If you want that, great. I mean, if you want to be if you want that attitude to be, yeah, you're my bling. Got this little arm candy on. It's I might keep her, I might not. If you want that, that's great. You can be independent on somebody. My guess is that most people listening to this don't want to be that. And they don't want somebody who's going to treat them like shit. If you want a true connection, if you want a true relationship, love yourself. There's nothing in this world that is more attractive than self-confidence. There's nothing that's more attractive to men than a woman who, I'll take you, I'll leave you, whatever. That's fine. Right? Now you can hear guys talk about, they want the girl that's going to fawn all over them. We don't. Right? Okay. 19-year-olds probably want that, right? Okay. Guys that are after one thing want that. Any man that's worth having that wants anything more than a one night stand or a great week or great month, whatever, you need to be your own person and allow them into your world rather than needing them in your world. That's the difference.
Okay. Awesome.
And that would be the most important thing that I would say. Love yourself, because the reality is you're awesome. The reality is that you have something that nobody else in this world has. And no matter what you think you look like, no matter what you think your flaws are, no matter what, I mean, because I could spend all day talking about all the stuff that's wrong with me and how I'm unlovable and how I'm horrible and blah blah and selfish and blah blah blah. The reality is I'm all right. I'm good. And I want to be good for my wife. My wife is amazing. I also know that, if I did something wrong, if I cheated or if I went out and, found some, 20 something, waitress, right? She'd be just fine without me. It would suck, it would hurt, and it would all of that. But the reality is she'd be just fine and would do probably better, if I'm being honest. And I love that. I love that about her, that she doesn't need me. She doesn't need my money. She doesn't need the house that my money bought. She's her own person. And that's phenomenal. So be that. Be that person because well, here's the thing. You are that person. Believe you are. All right. I'll stop now because I'll keep going.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. There's just so much very useful and helpful information that you provided.
Well,
So
good. I'm glad. I hope it helps. I really do. I mean that there's so much negativity and sadness and horribleness in the world. Um, we all need more wonderfulness and magic in the world. And
Positive.
yeah, I'm glad that you're bringing that, and helping bring that to women, because especially in today's world, it's more important than ever. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna stop the recording, and I just wanna